Welcome to another episode of the Nines presented by AT&T. This is our new Nines format. Last week, if you missed it, we did have a nice sit down with Cloud9 owner Jack Etienne talking about the updates to the company culture and their spring victory and et cetera, et cetera. Good interview, if I do say so myself. So go ahead and check that out on the Cloud9 YouTube channel if you haven't already. But from this point forward, we're going to be doing some in-depth looks at various Cloud9 players. And this is an opportunity to really dig into what has been happening across Cloud9's divisions. This week, we're joined by Licorice from the LCS team, top laner, carry for once or twice, I should say, right?
Yeah. I finally got my time to shine, so it was great.
It's true. And shine you did after the 10-minute mark, but we'll get to that point later on, I'm sure, as we sort of dissect these games. But it is exciting to talk to you this week in particular because you did play Gangplank and you did play Jayce and you won both of your games as we expected, even though they were perhaps a little rockier than we might have hoped heading into the start of this week. Let's begin there. So given your practice coming into this new patch, you guys showed some new strategies with you on more carry oriented, damage oriented top laners. Blaber's on the Olaf on both games, so he's going to be a little bit more heavy farming in the jungle. Everything else looking pretty normal though for Niski, Sven, and Vulcan for the most part.
I mean, honestly, we haven't changed our strategies much since spring. Like, we're always as a team trying to figure out what we think is the strongest right now. And like for me personally, in both of those games, like the Jayce and the Gangplank were just the picks that made like the most sense. And there was a chance that like the draft would have gone away where Ornn made the most sense, and then I'd just be like stuck on Ornn duty once again. But like it's nice when it goes a different way, so I can show that like I can play all these different picks. And I think we did. I think our first game was a little bit rocky, especially in the early game, but I think our second game we already started cleaning it up a bit, and it felt a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, your lane was a little bit problematic in the against Ssumday, but you fixed it really fast to your credit, and I do really want to get into that one. But starting with the FlyQuest game, you guys in the draft, let's talk about where you started and how you ended up with this Jayce pick. Because I did some digging, and Jayce is actually a champion that you've only ever played 3 times on stage. Because I looked at it and I thought to myself, I don't recall ever having seen you play Jayce. And so I looked, and your gameplay on Jayce before this victory. First off, this is your first Jayce victory, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Second off, your other Jayce games were versus Echo Fox in January of 2018, and
Mhm.
then when you were on Gold Coin United versus E United in 27 February of 2017. So you play Jayce about once every year and a half, I've
Yeah.
noticed. So why Jayce now? Is this a champion you actually practice or?
Well, the Jayce is pretty similar to my streaming schedule, so I stream every like once a year and a half, and then like after I stream, I'm like you know what, like I'm gonna have some fun and pull out the Jayce. Uh, but well, I mean, Jayce is just a champion that it's like one of these aggressive champions that if you're good at it, you get to like kind of dictate the pace of the game, like especially your lane in the top lane. And in Challenger, I tried it a bit, but I just like wasn't like I didn't understand enough about the game to actually be able to pull it off. And then when I came to LCS, I tried it again, and actually it was Sven who kind of called the veto on that one, and like because we started off 8-0. This was spring of when I first joined the team, and I was a rookie. We started off 8-0, and we played Echo Fox, who was the other like top team at the time. I think they were 7-1 when we played them, and then so I pulled out the Jayce, and I did okay, but like I could have carried and I didn't. And then right after we played Echo Fox again, and then I played the Lucian into Hooney's GP. That was when that happened. And then after that, Dennis was like, okay, like I want my top laner to play Maokai.
I mean, he's got
And
Kumo now, so I totally believe that he's getting what he wants. I think probably if we gave Svenskeren the choice between your Jayce and Kumo at all, I think he'd still pick your Jayce today. But that's he's got Hooney now at least. We'll see if he ever actually plays with them this split. So let's talk about Jayce in general as a champion right now, because we've seen cross regions at the start of this split. We didn't see a lot of Jayce last split, but now we're seeing him a lot with the phase rush. Why is this suddenly more of a thing? Now, part of it is that poke compositions are back in a big way,
Mhm.
this split in particular. And are there other reasons why you think Jayce is being introduced into professional play in the LEC and LCS?
The Jayce pick is like right now, it's one of those metas where like top lane hasn't actually really changed. Like nothing like Wukong got introduced and like Volibear just got released, but as far as I know, no one's played Volibear yet.
I have
And
not seen it myself.
yeah, and none of the champions really got nerfed or changed, but it's really just like the meta evolved a bit. And people realized that like, oh, like you can just pick Jayce into these champions. And Jayce is like a funny pick where like for so long everyone's like, yeah, like Jayce has to like slam the laning phase and like be up like 100 CS and take 4 towers because he doesn't scale. And then like as time goes on, people are like, oh no, like actually Jayce does scale if you put him in the right team composition where like it's hard for them to build armor. And then like your QE, like in the game I played, like I QE'd Karma and he was like 25% HP after I hit him. And it's like, yeah, that like scales really well. And it's like one of the few top laners that can actually deal with ranged supports really well. And I
Mm.
think that is the biggest reason why I like it as a pick right now, because like the set, the Aatrox, the Ornn, like when you're playing against like Lulu Aphelios or Ezreal Yumi, like you don't actually do anything to them. Like you don't, there's no like point in the game where you're like, yes, now I outscale and I destroy the enemy bot lane in a team fight. It's like it never happens. So then the lane phase matters a lot more, and I think that's why you're seeing the Jayce come out.
When you say he's good against the range supports, is that because they tend to be squishier, so they get poked out easier? Is it because he has the gap closing abilities to kind of almost one shot them? Like we almost saw you before Ignar escaped on a blast cone in that game against FlyQuest.
Yeah. Um, I would say it's actually mainly because the melee champs in top lane are just so bad at dealing with them that like in
Fair.
comparison it's like so much better because like Jayce I can hit the Lulu. But when I'm playing set, I just like activate my Q and I'm like trying to run at him and I'm getting slowed and I like never get there. And then it's just like it feels really bad. So like that's like I think in comparison it's a lot better. And like obviously if it's a really fed Lulu Aphelios, like doesn't matter what I'm playing in top lane, I'm gonna lose. But like it's just better.
All right. So when we talk about the matchup that you were facing as we go into the actual game itself. So first off, you did play against Solo, but only after he was introduced into the roster for
Too much more than that. He knows his lane matchups pretty well. He's not going to give you like huge advantages in lane generally. I don't know. Like he's just like a solid player. He's not like fantastic. I don't think he's the best. He's definitely not the worst. He's just like a good LCS player.
Okay, so when we look at this actual game that you were in versus FlyQuest, so you're in this set matchup. Set's a champion you played a lot last split. We have yet to see you in these two games play at this split. This seems like a pretty easy lane, easy situation to deal with. You did fall behind a little bit early though. So can you walk us through kind of your thought process in this lane against Set?
Yeah. So the set matchup's actually pretty hard. And in the draft they had set flexed all the way to fifth pick.
Hmm.
So I actually had to pick like I had to pick something that like one was good into set or like playable to set, and two like also was good as a blind pick. So I was a little bit more limited in my champions than I would have been otherwise. So I ended up on the Jayce. The lane is kind of like it's kind of whatever. I think at a certain point, like Jayce kind of like outscales in like a 1v1 sense where he like gets enough items and enough move speed that he's unkillable because set is just too slow to catch up to him. So like the early lane phase is kind of just even. You can push if you're good. Um and like I don't know, it really is just like kind of a skill matchup.
And in terms of your one of the things that Cloud9 has been really excellent at is understanding win conditions for their compositions. So this game, when you guys fell behind early, was kind of a disaster when it came to the fight in the bot river, where you teleported in, you TP'd in a little bit later than Solo did. What was the communication like, and what happened? Because that didn't look like a fight that Cloud9 would normally take at 4 minutes into the game.
The fight
It was a bit silly.
I mean, I wanna say that it's a fight that, like, we always take and that, like, most
Fair,
teams don't
okay.
challenge us is actually, like, the what really happens there. Like, Blaber's on the crab, he's like, "This is my crab," and then he's like, "What are these guys doing here on my crab?" And it's like
Yes, but he's also Olaf, so, 4 minutes in as Olaf is not the same thing as, having some of having the lease in there that he would, I would say, normally have in that scenario, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like they contested us, so we were like, all right, like calling all reinforcements, like we got to get in there and like beat them up a little bit. Solo ended up TPing a bit earlier, because I ended up going for like an early recall in the lane.
Hmm.
So I like finished my recall, got the buy-in, and then like he's TP'd, so I was like, okay, I need a ward because I didn't actually expect him to TP there because it's like generally it should be bad lane position since the wave just crashed on his tower, and then his wave should like slow build out to me. So it's like not a timer that he really wants to TP on, but he did it anyways. I think just because like I don't know, like it's a stage game, like let's just go fight kind of thing. Um, so they ended up fighting. I missed a skill shot, which I'm not sure if it like made the it was like what made the fight go bad, but I missed something that could have made the fight go better. My shock blast, and we ended up losing the fight in the end.
So this was later counteracted. You guys get back into lane. Everything's slightly normal for a while till the TP timers come up again, and then you guys are back in that basically the exact same position, just 4 minutes later, and you see describe to me the impetus behind going in the second time, because on that second fight you guys had a really big advantage. You're getting there basically at the same time Solo is. Niski is pushed up in his lane, so Power of Evil has to wait to roam. And even though bot lane's pushed up, it's sort of just Santorin and Ignar in the river by themselves against Blaber, who is now much more farmed up as the Olaf, and Wild Turtle isn't rotating up. So even though they do have the pressure in the bot side and Ignar's in the river, we see Wild Turtle really not contributing to that fight on the Ezreal at all. So what was the call in that situation?
Well, with the team comp we had, and we're playing against like mainly the Corki in the mid lane that like really isn't that strong either until he has a lot of items or with the package. Like we just want to fight as much as possible because our champions should just be stronger. And like even though we did end up losing the early fight, like I missed a skill shot. I think some of my teammates might have also like misplayed a little bit. Like we knew that we still had champions that were good in like those fights in the river. So like we pushed our lanes and then we were I think it was for the dragon or Vision. I'm not entirely sure what the second fight was all about, but like if they want to fight us, like we should have the advantage, especially when we're in the area first. So we were like more than
Sure.
willing to just like fight back when they came in to contest us.
I was also surprised that they even went for it, because if Wild Turtle had also rotated with Ignar, it would have been a really different situation. But considering they were fighting in the sort of top part of the river by mid lane and they didn't have priority, it was a really, and especially because Blabber was so strong at that point in time, it was a very odd decision that I think you guys really capitalized well on.
Yeah, I just think it was like a mistake from them to contest us there, and it was good on us to like know that we were the stronger team and that we should be willing to just run at them and like fight them to the death, basically.
When you're in those scenarios, because one thing that Cloud9 has been good at is even when you do fall behind early, if you get any of those opportunities to get back into the game, you guys take them. So what's the communication like? Are you just kind of playing passively, waiting for your opponents to make a mistake, or what is happening in the team at that point?
Well, what we're always focused on when we're in game is just like what we can do next. And sometimes, like when you're down 10k gold, like it like gets super limited. It's like, okay, like do we want to camp in this bush or this bush and like hope they walk in? But like in a game like that, like we lost one fight. We're really not down that much gold, and I think we are still up CS in like pretty much every lane. And Blabber was also like power farming on the
Yeah, he
Olaf.
was really far ahead by that
So
point.
like we weren't really behind. So we were just talking about like we have push here. Like mid lane has push. I'm like, okay, like both TPs are up. I have push, so I have like the better TP timers. Bot lane was like, yeah, we have push, so we're just gonna like go for river controller, or, like the dragon, or like whatever it happens to be, or like maybe we can roam mid, maybe we can dive bot. Like it's just we're always gonna be talking about like what we can do next, and like that play just like fell in line with what we could do.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stats if we can. I know it did mute the stream earlier when the stats came up, but taking a look at your stats versus solos, at least for these first two games, obviously super small sample size, but Microsoft has a really cool dashboard that we can use right now to pull up these statistics. So what's been interesting about both of your games has been that, first off, I mean, look at your damage percentage. You're dealing nearly a third of your team's damage, which is obviously exceptional. But you were also playing Jayce and Gangplank, so we'll see. That'll probably balance back out as you play more tank champs throughout the season. But one of the things that's been interesting is solo deaths, which are deaths where you don't have teammates around, not deaths to solo. I know that's super confusing in the
Yeah,
context of the
especially
player's
with solo
name
up
being
there,
solo.
yeah.
Now you have had a little bit of trouble with that, but in spite of that, all of your deaths at 15 for throughout these two games have been solo deaths so far. So you've been dying without Blaber or Niski coming to help you, but you also have a kill and assist ratio of 8. You have 8 combined kills and assists at 15 minutes. So you're dying, but you're also killing them a lot. And I have noticed that throughout these two games so far, Blaber and Niski have been focusing pretty heavily on your lane to help you get back ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, while we have been making lots of plays topside, it, like, goes back to my previous point where it's just like that is the play that made the most sense at the time. Like,
Yes.
in game, we rarely will go into game and be like, "Yes, we are ignoring this lane this game." It's always just like, "Okay, like, we're probably gonna try to focus this because it's gonna be volatile, but, like, if things happen, we're just gonna play the game." Like, I don't think planning too far ahead is actually very helpful when you're playing, like, on stage.
Sure, it's also a difference between the kind of champions that you've been playing. If we compare last split to playing two top lane carries, it's much more important that you get an advantage within these situations to be able to get the items to deal damage as part of your composition.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're playing Ornn and you're just sitting there building tank items and upgrading, Sven's items, it's less important that perhaps you get ahead than if you're playing Gangplank, right?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I mean, it kind of seems like the meta right now is really mainly about the jungler. Like, I think a lot of it
Sure.
is about the jungler. So, like, every time, like every time Blaber is near my lane, it's because it's good for him. Like,
I
like
see.
that. The main reason he is near my lane is because it's good for him, and the second reason he's there is because it like might possibly be okay for me, or like
I see.
might
I
help
see.
me out a little bit. Like
Well,
in
nice
the
nice to know nothing's changed on that front at least.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it works for us, and I think like we as a team really enabled the Blabber to play like the way he wants to, and he is like really, really good at that style, and he will just take over games when he's allowed to play that way.
I've noticed because even though we can go back to the FlyQuest start of this game, even though he did perhaps take a fight a little bit too early, push the advantage, perhaps a bit too heavily. Um, he came back very nicely through farming and pathing, which is not normally something that we would associate with Faber. What we would associate with him is kind of unrelenting aggression and desire to make plays. But he became so strong by that second fight just through superior pathing that it made a big difference.
I think your internet's going a little bit. You were a little bit
My
like,
internet is going crazy.
yeah,
Interesting. Well, I
but
can
yeah,
try and reconnect.
Blabber is really great. I got that much from your answer. That was yeah, I agree entirely. Blabber is fantastic, MVP material, one of the best.
There we go. Hopefully that will solve the problem. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't.
um, it's maybe possibly a little bit better.
Great. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a break, do the roundup, while we try and fix this issue.
It
And
seems good now.
oh, it's good now, but we should still take a break and do
Okay.
the roundup, and then we're going to come back and actually talk about the 100 Thieves game as well, because that one was also fun. And then maybe at the end we'll do a little bit of Twitch Q&A. Howdy there, buckaroos and buckarettes, and welcome to another edition of the Cloud9 Roundup, where you get all your Cloud9 related news of the week. Guess what? It's League of Legends season again, and Cloud9 is back on Summoner's Rift. And to no one's surprise, the LCS team went 2-0 this week, taking out their finals opponent from Spring, FlyQuest, as well as 100 Thieves. Congratulations to them. Academy team's back at it as well. Now, they were champions of Academy, but they lost both of their games this week to 100 Thieves Academy and FlyQuest Academy, but there's still a long season ahead of us. Now, if you are a fan of Cloud9 and you're thinking you might like some coaching from their players, head on over to the Cloud9 Twitter and find the tweets where Cloud9 says to send in your League of Legends replay files. You'll be seeing there that we are going to coach some of you up if you're mighty bad or maybe even if you're good. Now, moseying on over to the world of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, we're going to see the Cloud9 team take out MIBR 2-0 this past week in the DreamHack Masters Spring 2020. That advanced them in the playoffs to face Team Liquid, where they dropped 0-2. Still, a good run for those Cloud9 boys. In World of Warcraft, they're going to take the win, Cloud9, 3-0 against, and this is a real team name, Meow Meow Kitty Cats in the upper quarters of the AWC NA Cup number 4. They take the win as well against Space Station Gaming and are the AWC NA Cup 4 champions. They've won all 4 of these AWC Cups so far, so those wins, they just keep on coming. PUBG Mobile, Cloud9's got a team there too. They'll finish 11th place with 219 points on day 6 of the PUBG Mobile Pro League Spring Split. Unfortunately, got some tough news today for you Rocket League fans out there. After more than 1,000 days as C9 Rocket League together, the Muffin Men are splitting up and C9 Rocket League is no more. Thank you to Torment, Gimmick, Squishy, and Fireburner for your contributions to the Cloud9 organization. Happy trails to you. Do you like auto battlers? Well, then you probably like Teamfight Tactics. And if you're here and you like Cloud9 and you like Teamfight Tactics, you're going to be very excited about the upcoming Cloud9 TFT Nebula NA qualifiers. They're underway right now, and the Nebula tournament on the Cloud9 Twitch channel will be brought to you by none other than my old deputy Doa and good friend of the Nines Frodan. We've got some top tier casters, so be sure to tune in on July 8th when we'll be bringing you that TFT action. On the Valorant side of things, we have episode 1 of Valorant stream highlights featuring our very own Tens up on the channel right now. If you're looking for more Cloud9 content, you might have missed last week, but on this very show, The Nines, I did an interview with Cloud9 owner Jack Etienne, and I did a mighty fine job, if I do say so myself. Jack dropped all kinds of knowledge about his time as an owner, the coronavirus situation, the updates to the Cloud9 culture, and more. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear all about it. Cloud9 staff also got to answer questions for C9 fans last week during the AMA on the Cloud9 Reddit. If you had any questions, I hope you got them answered, and you can look up those answers right now by heading on over to Reddit. Cloud9 is continuing to stand as an LGBTQIA plus ally, with profits from the Cloud9 and Pride merch being donated to groups that provide support for underrepresented and marginalized communities. So if you haven't picked up any of that merch yet, you can get yourself some nice swag and know that the profits, they're going to a good cause. Finally, Cloud9 CEO Jack Etienne went live on Talking Games with Reggie and Harold to talk about how Cloud9 is optimistic about the future in a post-pandemic world. So be sure to head on over and watch that video if it sounds interesting to you. Well, now it's time to get back to the Nines here with Cloud9 top laner Licorice and yours truly, non-Cowboy Monte. We're back on the Nines, presented by AT&T with Licorice. Gonna talk about some of his plays versus Ssumday, arguably the other best top laner within the LCS. First off, though, we've got to do a Puma gift card giveaway. So if you are over 18 and live in North America, then you can win a $100 Puma gift card by typing #Puma in chat. And then we will select one winner. Maybe I'll announce it if they decide to tell me who it is. If not, I'm sure it'll be in the Twitch chat for you. So go ahead and enjoy some nice Puma swag. You can get Cloud9 swag with it if you like. It's probably a pretty good use of your time if you're on the Cloud9 channel and a Licorice fan. So back to it. Let's get into your second game. So we talked about the Jayce. Now we're going to be over on the Gangplank. I looked, and you only had one game of Gangplank this year. So you've played... you haven't played either of these champions that much, so it's a very interesting week to talk to you. Gangplank obviously was a big champion for the last couple of years, and many players playing it in the spring split. What brings you into the Gangplank here in this game against Ssumday versus 100 Thieves?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I played Ssumday in playoffs and I picked the Ornn and he picked the Gangplank, and it wasn't a matchup that people were playing at the time, I played the matchup and I solo killed him, and then the game went well. But then after the game, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm pretty sure GP's actually good into Ornn, and like, if he hadn't got solo killed early, like, I wouldn't have been able to like hold push, and he was allowed to scale for free. So I was like, you know what? Like, this is probably something that I want to try. So like from playing him, we come to summer, and then I play him again, and then I'm playing the other side of the matchup. So like, I just think it's like a pretty good pick into Ornn because it's hard for Ornn to punish. Um, and like obviously when I played against him, he died early. Now that I played the GP side, I died early. Although, in my defense, both times Meteos was pathing top, and both times Blaber was definitely not pathing top.
Yes. Did Blabber bait you? Did he say he was coming top?
No, no, no. I knew he wasn't coming top, but
Okay.
I
Well,
hadn't
you were in
played.
a tough situation.
Yeah, yeah, I hadn't played a lot against the Grassborn, and like he was able to trade more aggressively than I was used to. So
Mhm.
I like played the lane a little bit too, like in his face, basically, so that he was able to get good trades. And then he ended up getting the flash, and then Kindred was on my side, Blabber was moving away, my wave
Yep.
was pushing,
Yep. We'll get
so
into that.
it
Hold
was
up,
really
hold up,
just
hold up.
doomed.
We'll get into that's the purpose of this, is to get into it kind of step by step in your thought process.
Got it.
So when we talk about, we were discussing, and I was asking you about Grasp of the Undying Gangplank before we started this show, because I was curious about how Grasp exactly worked with the Q, and you told me that the Q operates because it's on attack, so you're going to actually trigger the Grasp when you actually use the Q. And also what it does is it counts as a melee attack instead of as a ranged attack, which is very interesting and specific to Gangplank's kit. So you're actually getting the higher values, the 5 life, the higher amount of damage and life steal off of the Q proc than you would, let's say, another champion like a Jayce auto.
Yeah, no, Grasp is like, it has the best synergy with Gangplank out of any champion. It actually works the same way with Kale, but only until Kale hits 6, so it's not that good because it's kind of useless after 6. But it does work the same way with Kale E, where it's like if you're a melee champion and you have like a ranged auto attack, you are a melee champion for the purpose of the rune.
Okay, that's super cool. So you head into this lane, and as you say, you're unused to the grasp Ornn. So somebody's able to trade very aggressively with you, blows your flash early. You have to use it, and at this point, you're kind of in a quandary because you're dealing with this kindred, and he's about to freeze this wave in front of his turret. Like we're getting to the point where the wave is pushing back. It's a little over halfway into the lane, and your choice is either give up all this farm and allow him kind of to get a freeze that would be very bad for you, or try and play a little bit more aggressively. Unfortunately, Meteos comes there and wrecks you at that exact moment where you're trying to fix this problem, right?
Yeah, there's really it's really kind of like this doomed situation where if I don't walk up, then Meteos is just gonna farm camps, and then the whole time I'm losing CS and XP. So like, sounds kind of dumb, but like I play a little bit safe. Like I was playing like pretty far off the wave so that I could like maybe if they misplayed, dodge the gank,
Hmm.
and then like just force him to actually commit to coming to my lane so that like he ganks once and then he kind of like I TB back and his timing is like over. And like with how it worked out, I actually like technically had push when I TB'd back for the crab, so Blabber actually got both crabs as well, which he was pretty happy about.
I'm glad that this is just really all about Blabber's. What I have learned from our conversation is that everything revolves around Blabber's ability to get scuttle crabs.
Hmm.
Um, whether it's going to be calling you to TP into a fight at 4 minutes in the bot lane, or the bot river, I should say, or whether it's really about you just dying and him not helping you kind of break these freezes. As long as he's getting the crabs, it's okay. Which I will say is important versus Kindred. So I don't entirely disagree with him in this particular instance, right?
Hmm.
It is more important. I mean, it's always important as a jungler because they give so much gold and XP, but especially against Kindred when you're actually getting these marks or trying to prevent the marks from being taken in the early game, right?
Yeah, I mean Kindred did get a mark off of me, so it was a little bit of a wash in the end, but
That's fair. That's fair.
but at least you didn't get the crab and the mark off me. Like these are the silver linings that we're looking at here.
All right. So one of the things that confused me about this draft from 100 Thieves is that I would never pick Kindred if I am 100 Thieves, not because of the champion, but because of the way that they play the game. Ryoma almost never has mid pressure just as a player. And
Mhm.
so to pick Kindred that needs to get invades and play off mid pressure in order to actually get marks, it seemed like a very weird choice to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak too much to what they were thinking because, like, I honestly don't know. But most people look at Kindred as like having a pretty favorable matchup into the Olaf, and I think that's just basically where it came from. Like, it was like jungle counter pick kind of thing.
So what happens in once you get behind here, you don't actually get that far behind because you actually go back, you pick up a call, you're still having a pretty big farm advantage. So even though we did see your early death, it really didn't have an enormous effect on the game. And then later on, Blabber's able to play to the top side, and you have this Galio in the mid lane that's also able to help out. You guys execute a really beautiful tower dive against Ssumday on the Ornn later on. So you get the Blaber picks up the kill on Meteos within the jungle, right? Is it Meteos or was it?
Yeah, we kill
Yes,
Meteos.
that's
He
right.
he
With the
flashes on him
axe
to force
and
his
the
flash, and I finish it off with the GP ult, and
yeah, the
then
GP ult because the axe goes over the wall behind the dragon pit, and then you GP ult him to get the kill.
yeah.
And then this leaves Ssumday under the tower. So what was the sequence of events to set all of that up? Like, were you after Blabber got some farm after you had finished all? There were no more crabs to kill, so he has to do something. And that's something. How did that call work out for you guys?
Um, well, I want to take it back to right after I died, actually. So
Sure, let's do
I
it.
TP'd back. I bought the call.
Yep.
Someday based as well. He TP'd back, and he had like more items than I did because obviously he got a
He's
kill.
Ornn. Well, he's also Ornn, so he'll
Yeah,
always have more items than you.
yeah. And at that point, he is actually able to win the lane, and it really is like if he gets my barrels, he will be able to put himself in like really good situations to force like really good trades on me. But in that game, like I was able to like actually stay super focused, and I got like I think I got every barrel except for one that he went for that game. So even though he got the early kill, it like didn't matter in the lane phase because I was still winning the lane and I had push at pretty much all moments. And then what happened is the top scuttle crab came back up.
Yes, the blabber baits. You baited him with crabs.
So then here comes Blaber. And he comes up to come take the crab, and I'm like, "Hey, Blaber, like I think Kindred is like in the bush top, like looking to try to kill me." He's like, "Oh, okay. Like let me kill the crab, and then I'll come. I'll come check that bush for you." And I was like, "Okay, boss, that sounds really great." And I was like, and I actually in that game I was like, "Oh, can you actually like push the crab up because like I'm really scared right now because I have no flash." Ornn was 6, and like even though he was like I think he was like 40% HP, like pretty low in mana, he like still had enough for the ult. And if Kindred came through, I would probably end up dying to the gank. So he pushed the crab up, and I was like, "Yeah, can you go check that bush for me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm level 6." So he walks in. There's Kindred in there. I think he ran away at the start, and then he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like this guy is like trolling. Why is he running at me?" So then we all ran in. Niski had mid push, and he was able to use the ultimate like at any time. And then we ended up killing the Kindred in his jungle there. And then right after, we were like, "Oh, like Ornn's conditions are still bad. Like he's still 40% HP, still low on mana. So like let's just dive this guy. There's nothing he can do."
So how do you set up the dive? Because the micro on that dive was what was so impressive about it. Because basically, it looked like very well coordinated in that you were playing towards the top lane river, and we see the Galio come in with the Olaf on the backside of the turret. But it was Blabber almost like faked that he was going to take aggro, which then drew out the flash from the Ornn, and Niski was channeling the taunt and was able just to walk over to him and then take the turret aggro and safely exit. How do you guys coordinate which abilities are going to engage those fights? Because it looked really clean.
As far as the dives go, like it's really just like who thinks they can tank the tower calls it, and like Niski there was like, I'll start the dive. He can't kill me. I'll always get out. So the plan was always that he would start with W, and then like basically like I set up my barrels. Blabber just runs as close as possible because I think like the more pressure you put on someone who's getting dove, like the better it's gonna go generally. Where like if someone's right in your face, like you're like, ah, like you know, like it like it's literally just human nature. Like if someone's in my face, I'm like, ah, like I don't like this. So like we just all ran at him. Um because I had lane push, it was like I didn't need any help to crash the wave, which means that Blabber and Niski are free to like actually cut off like any escape possible. So they can both go behind. I crash the wave alone. So there's really like no way out for Ssumday there.
Yeah, I mean, he was dead to rights. It's just impressive how there are many ways you could have dove that. It's just this was one of the, I think, more clean sequences of events that could have happened to make sure that there was absolutely no chance of him getting a kill. There weren't any misplays. It was probably the best kind of ability sequence you could have come up with in order to take him down
Yeah,
with
I
those
mean,
champions.
like it worked out that way because like we all like trust each other and that we know the limits of our champions. Like I knew I couldn't tank it because I was low, and Niski was like, "Yes, I can tank it for sure." And like obviously sometimes we're gonna make the wrong call. Like
Mm.
it's like it happens, but like that time, Niski knew his limits really well, and like it worked out really well.
So this game you're playing with, as we head into the later stages of this game versus 100 Thieves. Um, One of the big mistakes that happened was Stunt kind of getting caught out in the river by the dragon. You were not a part of the start of that play. It was mostly Blaber who was there, and then the collapse from mid and bottom. What were the comms like in that moment? Did you realize that Stunt was alone? Was this like something that you thought you could take advantage of and start to stack up some more of these dragons?
Um, well, our plan with that team comp, like especially with kind of like the Olaf that's power farming, is always going to be like if we can get the dragons, that's going to be really great for us.
Mhm.
So like we're always really focused on the dragons, and I think like generally I don't remember exactly what the comms were like, but generally, like what usually happens is like, okay, like let's go get the dragon. Like we've got mid push, we got bot push, like check check. Blabber's in the area. Like he timed his like jungle clear really well. He got his base off. He's there. And then we see someone in the bush. We're like, what is this guy doing in the bush? Like this is not allowed. This is an illegal move. Like
It was a very poor decision from Stunt. Let's put it that way. I don't even really know what he was doing, but that's fine. Yes,
yeah,
continue.
and then like we just go for the play, and we know what the play is supposed to look like from our end, and we know like where we're allowed to be and where they're allowed to be, and like when we find someone where they're not allowed to be, then like they're supposed to die, and like those are just the rules, and that's how it works.
What are the comms like when you have a global ult and Niski has a global ult? So a very different style of composition to the one you ran against FlyQuest. Which kind of openings are you looking for? How are you communicating those cooldowns? Does how much does it change your play as a team?
It doesn't change a ton. Like for me, when I'm on the GP, a lot of what I'm saying is like whether I need my ult for lane or not.
Mm.
And if I need it for lane, then I generally just don't say anything because then they don't have to think about it. And in that game, I like obviously didn't. So I was like, okay, like GP ult's up in like 30 seconds. I'm really like I really want to use it for a play. If you guys can set something up, and then like every once in a while, I'll just like keep reminding them like, yeah, I can GP ult. And like if something random happens, then I'll usually just like toss it in there. As long as like if they're in a bush we weren't expecting, there's like a random fight that wasn't like really a plan, then like you just throw out the GP ult. Um, and then I think for Niski, it's a little bit more like planned, kind of, where he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's really just like these are the tools we have. Like we know how to use them, and we know. Like I think something our bot lane does really well is setting us up for plays around them. So like if I'm like I have GP ult, and they're like that game they were playing Ezreal Yumi, so it's like not the most like they don't have like a Nautilus, like Nautilus can't like flash QR and like start engage a fight for like GP ult on someone with no flash. But like they're pretty good at knowing how to use the tools they have at their disposal. And in that game they had GP ult, and it's like kind of just up to them to figure that out.
What are some of the times that you would need the cannon barrage for lane? So you were saying you didn't really need it in the Ornn matchup, but what are some scenarios or matchups where you think it's more important to be able to have that tool for yourself?
Basically in lanes that you're getting like really hard pressured, like I would say like the Lucian is like kind of this classic counter pick to GP. And in that
Yep.
lane, like if the Lucian's playing well, like you should need to use your ult to like clear waves off your tower
Mm.
and to like possibly survive if he's like going super aggressive on you. And like you won't really have a lot of those windows to just like hold your ult and like farm up and use it for bot lane. Because you'll just like need it for lane or else your tower is gonna die super early.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stats provided by Microsoft of you versus Ssumday in the two games so far. Did pull a few different ones out this time because I do want to talk about how you kind of bounce back because especially your farm was very good even though you did end up dying early, right? So over your two games so far, you have very high CS at 15. Your CS per minute, I believe, is the highest of any player so far in the LCS who's a top laner in the summer split. So
Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a lot of your team's gold for a top laner as well. Do have to go back to those solo deaths that happened just as it did in the FlyQuest game, but the bounce back has been really impressive. When you're, and I want to talk briefly about how you get that CS per minute so high. Now, part of it, again, small sample size and the champions you've been playing, both Jayce and Gangplank have excellent like instant wave clear, basically. So you have an opportunity just to kind of go to a lane, quickly clear everything out, and then head somewhere else. How are you guys doing lane assignments in kind of the mid game in order to get your CS per minute higher? Because you've been getting a lot of that farm.
Um, our lane assignments really aren't about CS
Okay.
generally. Like it's almost never about CS. Like sometimes it's about like waves that are coming in and like, oh, we got to pick up this wave. But like it's all about, especially when we're winning, it's all about like where we can pressure, and then we set up the lanes for where we can pressure. And if it so happens that like we want to pressure top side, and I'm GP, so I'm playing weak side, and I'm like helping out with the ult or my TP, like in the scenarios that it's needed, and bot wave is frozen, then like I just like group up mid, or like maybe I farm some jungle camps, and like I just like find the best use for my time. And it's not really like, oh, like we should like set up this it's like reverse slow build in the bot lane that we can pick up in 20 minutes. Like that's just not really like how we play right now.
I don't think it's how anybody plays right now. The game's too fast to play that way anymore, in my opinion. Do you know any teams that really do that?
Like reverse slow building. I mean, I don't I don't think that's a thing. I know like some teams like to freeze, and I think that sometimes freezing is good, and like against certain team comps and champions it like really feels like not good at all. And I think I don't know. I think it's like really situational whether you're able to play a slow game or not. And sometimes it's really good, and often I think like LS is like the big person who like loves talking about freezes, and I think sometimes it is actually really good and people don't take advantage of it, and I think sometimes it's not really like it's not actually an option in that scenario.
I mean, I think that LS's perspective is sort of like the perfect game. It does make sense because you want to deny resources, but unfortunately, like teams are willing to take risks in order to break those freezes or do dives that might not be ideal, but can still work out a good percentage of the time. So I do think it's in the perfect game sense. I do agree with him. In the practical game sense, I think it often is a little bit more risky to try and conduct freezes. Also, when you freeze, it does require the rest of your team to basically not make any mistakes because otherwise, you've already conceded pressure at that point in time. So if anybody is too far forward on another part of the map, then basically you can screw your entire team, right?
Yeah, it's definitely something that everyone has to be on the same page for, and like it works better for some team comps than others, and it's really just always going to be a judgment call like in the game at the time.
One of the things that I've talked to Cloud9 about more broadly, moving away from these particular games, is that Reaper said in our pre-split interview that he's really interested in moving away from just one style. Like you guys basically won almost all your games playing a very specific style around early dragons, swapping top into the first herald, and then snowballing the game from there and exerting a lot of kind of like soul pressure as the game went on and controlling every objective basically, which is something you shouldn't probably be able to do. That's not really how the game's designed. When you have cross map objectives, you shouldn't be able to get all of them, but you do it anyway. So congrats.
Thank you.
Is this a we didn't see that this game partially because of, especially in the FlyQuest game, the kind of early problems that you guys had in the river. You weren't able to exert the same level of Drake control, but also the change to having you on the carry top laners also kind of shifts the way that you guys are going to play the game just a little bit. And Reaper said he really wants to see more styles. Was this part of that experiment in terms of diversifying the way you play the game, or is this just kind of how the chips fell this week on that after that early fight?
It's really just how the chips fell this week, I think. Like in practice, we're going to be trying new things, and like that's kind of like a lot of that's going to be up to Reaper. Like if he wants to go a new direction, then we're just going to like try that in scrims and see how it goes. But when it comes to stage games, like we are just going to do what we think is best. And like even with all these new styles, the goal is always just going to be like being able to play these new styles and like having it in your like toolkit, so to say, more so than like this game we're going to like hard force this play style, because when you're forcing things that don't make sense, like the game is just going to like feel really bad to play.
Sure.
And like in those games it just like the way we played it made sense, and that's just so that's how we played it.
I understand from a stage perspective, but you can force those things when you're scrimming because that the intention is to get practice in those different styles. Have you guys changed the way you've been practicing at all to try and maybe potentially lose some scrims but gain some more information, or at least kind of diversify your style a little bit?
So far, we haven't honestly done a ton of like trying to play like super differently, like macro wise. I would say like we didn't like not having like the dragon focus or not having the Rift Herald focus. Like I don't think we haven't really tried that so far. Like we have been really focused on figuring out the new meta right now, coming into the new split and like figuring out what champions everyone thinks are good and like what matchups we want to play. And that's kind of been where our focus has been so far. And I think that as the split goes on, and we get more comfortable with like champions and like more of the basics of the game, then we'll kind of diversify more into like different macro strategy kind of things.
Let's talk about some of the other teams in the LCS and some of the other games we saw. One of the things that I think went very well this week was Team Liquid looked a whole lot better. Obviously, that first game against TSM was extremely one-sided, and then their second game they pulled off a pretty impressive comeback. And Tactical is looking like a pretty solid start to this split so far. They look much better coordinated. What were your early thoughts on Team Liquid?
Well, we actually scrimmed Team Liquid a fair bit because I don't
Mm,
think we play them very early on. So we scrimmed them a fair bit in the preseason, and they like to me they honestly looked like the strongest team like after us.
yeah.
So I'm not surprised at all to see them do well on stage. They just seem like I don't know, like I don't know if there's anything like super special about them that I can like point to as far as playstyle. And honestly, like even with us, like being in the behind the scenes, there isn't like these like special things that these teams have. At least from my perspective, it's just like you know what, like we know our lanes really well. We're really good at like winning lane, and we are really good at using our pressure to like end the game. And like they're better than most teams at doing that. So they're a good team.
The bar is set pretty low. Let's put it that way in the LCS right now. But it did look like at least slightly better than last split with Team Liquid kind of coming back online at the start of things. Um, what were your impressions of playing against FlyQuest? Because beating them in the finals. Now you weren't going to be scrimming with them very much because they were your first game here of the LCS. Have you noticed any kind of improvement in FlyQuest as a team?
Not really. They seem like the same team to me. And I mean, like the finals, like obviously weren't super close, so we weren't like expecting some like crazy game one rematch like kind of thing. Like like we weren't like coming into the match and be like, oh my god, like but what if they got better and like they're gonna be a really good team? We were like, you know what, like finals weren't very close. If we keep improving, we'll probably still be better than them. And like at least in the pick ban, especially, like they drafted the exact same way they always do. And I know Blaber talked a bit about it on the broadcast, but like they pick they pick their jungle 1, 2, 3. They pick their top laner 1, 2, 3. They save their last pick for Power Beeble for a counter pick, and then like it's just really easy to draft around them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Are there any other teams that you think have stood out? EG as a team, even though they played like DLG and I think 100 Thieves came out of the gate weaker than I would have thought, a strong finish to spring. EG looks like they were a little refined, like they had a little bit more coordination on their side.
Yeah, EG looks pretty good right now. I think getting a perfect game is probably more on CLG than it was on like it's more on CLG executing wrong than on EG
Yeah, that that
executing right.
was that
Especially the
was
part where like
disastrous. That was
you
disastrous.
don't get a single tower plate, like that means like you can't force the enemy team to not take a single tower plate. Like that's just not a thing. So it's more of CLG just not playing their side correctly. But I do think that EG is going to be one of the top teams again this year, and I'm excited to play them again on stage.
Yeah, that CLG game was quite remarkable. I don't even know if there's a term that people have invented for not even getting a tower plate. Like perfect game it was obviously no objectives, no kills, so no dragons, no heralds, no barons, no towers, no kills. I don't even know if we have a word for no plates. I don't even know if that's happened before. I'll be honest with you. I
I
don't even know if it's
saw
happened.
I saw on a Reddit thread that I think might have been like SKT or some LCK team actually had the same perfect game with no tower plates at some point. But it's like funny because the barrier for like a perfect game like keeps going up. Like before it was like no towers, no dragons, no kills, and then it's like no towers, no dragons, no kills, no Rift Heralds,
Yep.
and now it's like no towers, no dragons, no kills, no Rift Herald, no plates, and you're like, whoa, like this isn't fair, man. Like I just want to perfect game somebody, and it's like so hard now.
So I don't know. There must be a new term that has to be invented for that. And I would also love to. I think one of the things that I would love to hear from Riot is how many times that has actually happened so far since the introduction of turret plates, because it can't be very many. Like it absolutely can't be. Like that is a crazy stat. Um so yeah, CLG looking like a train wreck. Their plays, I mean, I don't even know what they were doing on the map half the time. I have no idea what's going on there. But enough about garbage teams. What do you think has this week changed your opinion about who the powerful teams were going to be coming into summer? Or is it pretty much what you thought from the scrims and the information that you had?
I actually thought CLG was gonna do a bit better. Like, like based on scrims, they seemed like not bad, and then like coming into stage, I think they just didn't do well. I don't know.
If
Eh,
only that they had some sort of coach who could help them get over stage jitters or could help them from a mental aspect. I think they could probably really use one of those, don't you?
yeah, that is a really interesting thought, Monty. Maybe you could pass it on.
Seems like translating scrim performance to stage shouldn't be something they're having issues with, but who knows? Anyway, so you thought CLG would be doing better.
Yeah, I honestly thought CLG would be doing better. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up steam like throughout the split and like ended up. I think that they're probably the team that's the most likely to just like take random games off of top teams this split. And then maybe like they can shore up some of their issues and actually be a good playoffs contender come the end of summer. But and that's kind of what I'm looking for from them.
All right, Twitch chat. We're going to take some questions from you. So type them in Twitch chat, and I will unfortunately damage my brain by reading them. In the meantime, while we wait for that, do you have any teams that you like from other parts of the world? Did you get a chance to catch any of the LEC games this weekend? Was there anything that you found interesting over there? I was talking to Mad Lions coach Cass yesterday on SI about their kind of Mad Lions drafts, which were super cool. But I don't know if you saw those games.
I've been watching the LEC games. I can't say that I like looked at any of them like super super closely or was like, wow, like this is super crazy. I've never seen a draft like this before. I think like everything I'm seeing right now is like
You
making
didn't
me
like
less.
the Senna Wukong support?
Um, I mean, it was fine. I talked to Sven a bit about it to get his opinion on it. He's pretty opinionated on that, so I was like, you know what, like not my lane. That's cool. Like that's your job, you know. As long as you're winning bot lane, I won't. You know, like you do what you want.
All right, here's a question for you. Uh, from Dark Maximus, who is the best safe blind pick for top lane? We talked a little bit earlier about how you had to blind pick the Jayce because of the potential set flex in the FlyQuest game. Is it Ornn still?
The safest bind that most people are going to right now is set actually.
Okay.
It is banned a fair amount of the games, so then you kind of have to pick your poison after that. But a lot of people are kind of defaulting to the set as this top lane pick.
Can you explain why to the
Um,
pleb?
I mean, basically, like the Jace matchup, like Solo took the wrong runes. You're supposed to go Fleet instead of Conqueror, and you're also not supposed to rush Cleaver because I'm not building armor. Like like if you go Fleet, you get a little lifesteal in lane. Then I can't kill you, you can't kill me. We kind of just farm it out. Like there's really no matchup that like hard counter set or like beat set. So it's like the safest blind pick.
Would you prefer a different format for the LCS season, like best of two or best of three instead of best of ones? What do you think about the current way that LCS is played?
I was actually thinking about it, and like how I think like right now I think I have a deeper champion pool than most people, and I think that like is almost always the case throughout the split. And I think that having best of threes would be really nice to actually like showcase more of what players have prepared and like kind of reward the players that like actually prepared for more than just like, oh, like I'm gonna blind pick Aatrox here, you know? Like I've been doing it for 2 years and it hasn't failed me yet. So I'm gonna lock that Aatrox right in again. And I think like the meta right now is actually like I don't think it's an Aatrox blind pick meta, but people are just blinding like the Aatrox and the Ornn because those are their comfort picks still.
Broken Blade in shambles. Uh, Here's a good question from the Earl of March. With Riot's recent announcement of an item system revamp, what do you hope will improve, and what are your concerns? So let me set this up because for those people who don't know what Riot announced. So Riot basically announced that they didn't really like. uh, uh, Throughout the entire history of League of Legends, itemization has been very stagnant. If we compare League of Legends to other MOBAs, most items are stat sticks in League of Legends. They're not actually like Dota, where you have a lot more kind of activatable items or items that kind of have various effects that can really change the outcome of the game. And it seems like Riot, from my interpretation of that post, was that they wanted to have more meaningful choices be created because, especially in AD carry role, there often aren't a lot of like interesting things you can do because it's so based off of just contributing stats to that position. So, one of the things they also said, what did they say about tanks specifically? Because it's slipping my mind right now. They wanted more itemization options for tanks, which also really affects you.
Got it. I'm one of the people that needed that explanation because I I have not heard anything about this.
Oh, okay. It was actually kind of cool. Well, I mean, that's my answer then is like it to me, it was very vague. But to me, it sounded like they were trying to move away from that system because one of my longtime complaints about League of Legends was that it was too stats based and didn't have a lot of meaningful choices. And part of that too, like I've been saying they should get rid of crit forever because I think it's stupid. I don't like RNG in my games in as much as it's possible, and I think that getting rid of that would probably allow them to make better itemization choices, especially for AD carry around activatables instead. Um, so it sounds like they want to go down that route, which I think would be interesting. But also part of that too, in terms of creating unique items, has led to the current Death Stance situation, which is its own uh, you know, can of worms, right? Having these unique passives is can make weird things happen to the overall meta, like we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I'm sure that like it might be a bit of a balancing nightmare. That's kind of my first thought that
Yep.
like I'm gonna go into the next preseason and I'm just gonna lose my mind because like there's gonna be like one item. It's gonna be like League of Cleavers again, where like everyone just builds like six black cleavers and then and that's like the best build you could possibly come up with. But I don't know. Like I've never actually played another MOBA besides League, so I don't have any experience with like what different itemization feels like the league stuff feels normal to me, so it just feels like it feels good because it's like what I'm used to. So I can't tell you what it's gonna be like.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people make fun of me for this because they just don't understand, like they haven't played other MOBAs, but the mobile MOBA Vainglory actually did have a very interesting itemization system where it was sort of like most heroes in that game could scale off of their equivalent of AD or AP. So you were kind of making a choice about how you were building, either in terms of like auto damage or like spell damage on most different carries. So it actually did create much more kind of interesting counterplay options, depending on how everyone in the game was building. So I think like in general, League could use more of that. And I think that pretty much what ends up happening in League is that you kind of get dialed into just one thing, and it actually doesn't have the best itemization system overall. Let's see if we have some other. Here's one from Nacha Fan. Do you think a return to the tank meta would reward different skills than the current top lane meta?
Oh, really? Uh, tank metas are just I don't like tank metas because it rewards players who don't do anything. And that is my problem with the tank meta because when
It's like the LCS.
uh,
All right, continue.
I mean like when like there's gonna be games where like your goal is to like win lane and you pick something like a Jayce and then for your team to have good game state, you were supposed to win lane and you're supposed to have pressure. So you were required to like know the lane matchup, know how to pressure, be able to play around the jungler, and like all these things. And then when it's tank meta, a lot of players, it's like less punishing for players to just be like, I'm gonna just hug my tower and do nothing because often that is actually the correct move, at least at certain points of the game, where like, your team's playing around bot lane, your job is to just not feed. So it's like a lot less punishing and a lot more rewarding to just sit there and do nothing, which is why I personally don't love tank meta and why I personally hate Maokai. Because Maokai is like this champion that doesn't bring any damage and cannot carry a game no matter what. And so then it's like you just don't have to do anything, and that's why I hate Maokai. Yeah.
And also, he just passively heals in lane, so you can't kill him or do anything to him. So
Yeah, it's like hard to punish him as well. And he has such good gank setup that it's like really hard to pressure properly. It's a whole thing. It's the champion, just him and Yumi, just take him out. Take
fair enough. Fair enough. I actually like Maokai. I always have, but that's because I like TP flanks. So I do. I am biased, but this was also before they reworked him and his ultimate and everything like that.
Oh man, the old Maokai. Before you go on, the old Maokai was fantastic. You like clapped your hands above your head. You had the
Yep.
big circle around you. You
Yes,
dove
it
their
was
back line.
fun.
You 1v3 their AD carry, their mid laner, and their support at the same time. You killed them all. Fantastic champion. Don't know why they changed.
I actually don't know. In all seriousness, though, actually don't know why they changed it because I didn't think that that was really an issue with that. I think that was an itemization issue, not like a Maokai issue. And I enjoyed kind of his presence in the meta personally.
I thought it was just broken. Like I was playing Challenger. It was like we were going through our drafts, and it was like, you know what? Like it makes the most sense to just first pick Maokai here. Like blue side, red side, just take the Maokai. It just kills the backline. They can't play the game. So I'm glad they reworked it, but I'd be even happier if they just removed it from the game.
All right. A couple more questions. Alpha DB3 has been very insistent on this one. So, if you played League for the first time right now, how long would it take you to hit Diamond? I believe when you first played League, you hit Diamond very quickly, right? If I recall our conversations.
Yeah. When I first started, I placed silver one, and then I hit diamond in my first year or first season. Uh, Yeah, I guess it fits in this like the same year. But like I started playing ranked season 3, hit diamond uh in the middle of season 3, hit my challenger promos at the end of season 3 or like near the end of season 3, failed my challenger promos and then quit for a while. But that's that's a different story.
Okay, quickly, what do you think about Wukong top for LCS right now? What are your
Uh
thoughts on new Wukong?
I don't want to talk too much about Wukong because like it's showing up in other regions and it's not showing
Yes.
up in NA as much. Basically, the thing with Wukong is that it's a pick that is really strong in team fights with the double knock up in the ultimate, a lot of armor shred, like a stealth. Like it's just like a really, really, really strong team fighter. And in the other regions, players are just picking it because they they're like, you know what, like maybe I'll get countered in lane and maybe I'll like won't have pressure all the time, but I will show up to team fights and I will do really well. And right now in North America, players just don't seem willing to take that risk where they're like, no, I'm just gonna pick Aatrox because I like know the matchups because like with the newer champion like Wukong, they could totally pull something out that you haven't seen before in practice and like counter you with like okay, I'm not gonna give an example here, but like my point is that it's like a little bit more unknown, and I think that players are just kind of defaulting to the comfort picks that they have in the LCS, even though I think it's strong.
Cool. Well, I think that'll do it for this week for the Nines presented by AT&T. Thank you for joining me and going really in depth on a lot of these games and matchups. I'm sure it'll be really helpful if you guys want to go back and watch those games. You can understand kind of from Licorice's perspective. And the purpose of this as we go forward, we're going to have more LCS, more Academy players, Counter-Strike players. We're going to have players from all over C9 on this show. But the purpose of this is kind of go more in depth, give you guys a chance to ask some questions as well, and give some insight that can hopefully help you in your own games or at least understand the professional game just a little bit better. So we will see you once again next week, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. That is what? 7 p.m. Central European Summer Time and 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you very much, and we'll see you then.